Welcome to British BioMedicine Institute. Today I, Dr. Pramod Khatri, is going to represent a simple topic named as GFR, glomerular filtration rate, and various factors which can affect it. So after this, you will be able to describe the glomerular membranes in terms of major layers and its permeability characteristics. Explain in terms of size, electrical charge of pores of the membrane and why the glomerular membrane has a high degree of selectivity. State the glomerular pressure, Bowman's capsular pressure and colloid osmotic pressure in the glomerular capillaries, and explain how these pressures cause filtration and of the fluid at glomerulus. State the composition of glomerular filtration, and you will be also able to explain the terms of GFR and filtration fractions and give their normal values. So you can also describe the effect of the following on GFR, like your renal blood flow, afferent and efferent arterial constrictions, sympathetic stimulations, and outflow obstructions. You will also be able to recognize GFR, why it is kept constant with wide changes in arterial blood pressure by means of autoregulations. So now let me start. GFR full form is glomerular filtration rate, and in males it ranges from 90 to 140, whereas in female it ranges from 80 to 125 ml per minute, and about 180 liter of plasma is filtered every day. So glomerular filtration, there can be devoid of cells and protein, and the concentration of salt, organic molecules like your glucose and amino acids are similar in plasma and urinary and ultrafiltrate. So this is a diagram of the GFR, where the pores in endothelium and capillary lumen and filtration slit, basal lamina, filter material and lumen of Bowman capsules are clearly visible. So this is a diagram of your GFR again, where your slit, pores, foot processes, basement membrane, fenestrate, erythrocytes, capillary endothelium and podocytes cell body are clearly visible. So the glomerulus is basically a capillary endothelium, and the pore is 100 nanometer, and it is basically a basement membrane, and the tubular epithelium pores are 8 nanometer. So the filtrate will help in differentiation of plasma and protein. So EFP is equal to PGC minus PBS, which can lead to COPGC and COPBS. So GFR is your KF. KF here means filtration coefficient milliliter per minute per mmHg. So this is how your afferent arteriole and efferent arteriole movement will be going on. So at the afferent end, there will be 100 mmHg pressure, 0 mg pressure or 15 mmHg pressure, and if there is minus 28 mmHg pressure, it can lead to 17 mmHg. So here you can have a difference between your afferent arterioles and efferent arterioles. So basically there is a Starling forces which will be coming from the afferent arterioles, and it will go to glomerular blood hydrostatic pressure, which will be between or near to 55 mmHg. Then it will move to CHP, which is your capsular hydrostatic pressure, and it ranges near to 15 mmHg. Then it will go to your BCOP, blood colloid osmotic pressure, which is 30 mmHg, and then it will be out through the proximal convoluted tubes PCT, whereas through the arteriole efferent arterioles, there will be presence of Bowman capsules and corpuscular capsules, and NFP is your net filtration process. GBHP is your glomerular blood pressure, hydrostatic pressure. CHP is your corpuscular hydrostatic pressure, and BCOP is your blood colloid osmotic pressure. So for filtration, the starting forces will help in like in your filtration. There will be a hydrostatic pressure in glomerulus which will range from 45 mmHg, and it will collide to OP in tubules at 0 mmHg. And if there is a against infiltration, then the hydrostatic pressure in tubules will be between 10 mmHg, and the collide OP in glomerular blood will be 25 mmHg. So this diagram, there is an increase in glomerular hydrostatic pressure which ranges from 55 mmHg, and the blood colloid osmotic pressure is 30 mmHg, and capsular hydrostatic pressure is between or near to 15 mmHg. So this is how the glomerular filtration will happen. So the GFR can be altered by changing Kf value or any of the Starling forces. There are various factors which affect glomerular filtration, and there can be a role of hydrostatic or oncostatic pressure. There can be role of capillaries and mesangial cells. Renal blood flow. So basically there is 1.25 liter per minute, or I can say 25% of CO. It will be indirectly determined by glomerular filtration rate. It can modify the rate of water and solute reabsorption by PCT. It helps in participation in the concentration and dilution of the urine, and it can deliver substrate for the excretion of the urine. So autoregulations of RBF and GFR remains relatively constant between 90 to 180 mmHg. So autoregulations of RBF and GFR, they are basically pressure sensitive, like your myogenic, they follow the myogenic mechanism, and the NaCl concentration is entirely dependent on this mechanism. So in the diagram, Bowman capsule, corpuscular epithelium, podocytes, proximal tubes, glomerular capillary, lumen of Bowman capsule, efferent arterioles, distal tubules, and efferent arterioles, they are clearly visible. So now comes the autoregulation. Is absent between arterial pressure of 90 mmHg. Autoregulation is not perfect. Despite autoregulation, RBF and GFR, they can be changed under appropriate conditions by several hormones. So there are major hormones which can influence GFR or RBF. They are basically vasoconstrictors or your sympathetic nerves, angiotensin II and endothelin. So vasodilators, they basically consist of PGE2, PGI2 or nitric oxide, bradykinin, and A and P. And TGF, tubuloglomerular feedback. SNGFR is greater in juxtamedullary nephrons, which is equal to or near to 50 NL per minute. The SNGFR is determined by composition of fluid in the distal nephron. The mechanism is called tubuloglomerular feedback. So now comes the estimation of glomerular filtration rate. So in the clearance, basically clearance is of a substance is the volume of plasma from which the substance was completely cleared by the kidney per unit time. So the units are volume plasma per unit time. So Cx equals UxV divided by Px. So clearance of X is equal to Cx is equal to GFR when the substance X meet the following criteria. It is freely filtrable at the glomerulus. This is the number one criteria. Not reabsorbed by the tubules, second criteria. And third is not secreted by the tubules. Fourth criteria is not synthesized by the tubules. Fifth criteria is not broken down by tubules. So these criteria are met by polysaccharide insulin. So C insulin is equal to GFR. However, inulin doesn't occur naturally in the body and requires several hours of infusion to reach steady state concentration. Therefore, creatinine is used to estimate GFR. Next comes the creatinine. So creatinine is basically formed from muscle creatinine and is released at approximately a constant rate. Therefore, blood creatinine changes little per 24 hours. However, creatinine is secreted by the tubules and overestimate GFR by small amount. For freely filterable substances, when the Cx equal to Cin net tubular reabsorption, B Cx greater than Cin where the net tubular is secreting. So now comes the PAH, para amino hyperate. So it undergoes tubular secretion and is freely filterable at low PAH. Virtually all PAH, para amino hyperurate, escaping filtration is secreted by the tubules. Therefore, virtually all plasma supplying secreting nephrons are cleared by PAH. About 10 to 15 of total TRPF, total renal plasma flow, is supplied by non-secreting portion of the kidney. Thus, CPAH, para amino hyperurate, actually measure the effective renal flow, plasma flow, or we can say ERPF. So this is about near to 85 to 90% of TRPF. This only applies to a low PAH. At high level of Tmax is exceeded. So the radiographic contrast diatrast is handled similarly to the PAH. Urea is freely filterable, but 50% is reabsorbed, and the amount reabsorbed depends on the flow rate. Therefore, urea is less accurate than creatinine in an estimate of GFR. So now comes the fractional excretion. Fractional excretion, or we can say FEX, is the mass of X which has been excreted as a fraction of total mass filtered. So FEX is equal to UX by V divided by GFR PX. And if FEX is less than 1%, then there will be net tubular reabsorption. And if it is above or it is greater than 1%, then there will be net tubular secretion. So now comes the estimation of glomerular filtration rate. This may be done using the clearance of a substance which is present in the plasma that is filtered freely at the glomerulus but is neither reabsorbed nor secreted by the tubules. Like inulin, it is basically a polysaccharide of molecular weight greater than 5000 which satisfy this criteria. So this is how your filtration or excretion rate is depend. So in inulin clearance, there will be filtration rate in P inox X GFR, and it will be excreted in Owing X V. Since inulin cannot be reabsorbed or secreted, all inulin that is filtered at the glomerule must be appear in the urine. In the steady state, the rate of filtration mole per minute of the inulin must be equal to its excretion in the urine or moles per minute. The rate of inulin filtration or moles per minute equals P inulin or moles per minute multiplied by GFR, milliliter per minute. So the rate of excretion in inulin will be, again, it will be measured in moles per minute, and it will be equals to U inulin, like your moles per liter, multiplied by V, ml per minute, where U inulin and P inulin, they represent the concentration of inulin in urine and plasma, and V represents the rate of urine flow. Next is inulin filtration rate or excretion rate. So it will be analyzed with the help of P inulin multiplied by GFR, which equals to U inulin multiplied by V. So the GFR will be equal to U inulin V divided by P inulin. The right hand side of equation is equal to clearance of inulin. It is basically a clearance of any other substance is UV divided by P for that substance. The GFR is equal to the clearance of inulin or any of the other substance that is freely filtered but neither absorbed nor excreted or secreted. The normal value of GFR for a 70 kg human is about 125 ml per minute. Now comes creatinine clearance. So in clinical practice, creatinine clearance may be used to estimate GFR for the following reasons, like inulin is not produced endogenously. Therefore, it must be infused intravenously if it is to be used in renal function test. It is much more convenient to use a substance that is normally present in the plasma, that is freely filtered but neither secreted nor reabsorbed. Creatinine, a normal breakdown product of the creatinine, that is endogenous compound that will fill this criteria. So now comes however, in human, a small amount of creatinine is secreted into the urine in the PT, proximal tubules. Consequently, the rate of excretion of creatinine exceeds its rate of filtration by 5 to 10%. The clearance of creatinine that exceed the true GFR by 5 to 10%. All that is required in a single plasma sample and 24 hours of urine collection. In most renal disease, the GFR is substantially reduced. It is detected by a diminished creatinine or clearance or by frequently with the help of elevated pre-creatinine. So there will be no reabsorption, no secretion, and basically a small amount is being reabsorbed with the help of filtered or excreted reactions or mechanisms. So now comes the estimation of renal plasma flow rate. There are certain substances which are being excreted from peritubular capillary plasma and are secreted into the proximal tubules fluid in large amount. The concentration of such substances in the renal plasma volume renal venous plasma is therefore much less than in renal arterial plasma. So in this type of cases, there will be a direct Flick principle, which means blood flow equals to rate of excretion divided by A and V, concentration differences, which can be used to estimate renal plasma flow rate. PAH, I hope you remember this, para-aminohippuric acid, might be used for this purpose. So in a steady state, the rate at which PAH enters the kidney in moles per minute in the renal artery plasma is equal to the rate at which PAH leaves the kidney in the urine and in renal venous blood. So PAH, which can be measured with the help of moles per minute entering the kidney in renal artery plasma, is equals to PAH multiplied by RPF. PAH measured in moles per minute leaving the kidney in renal venous plasma equals to PV/PAH multiplied by RPF. So PAH moles per minute leaving the kidney in the urine is equal to UPAHV. So basically there is a near complete extraction in one passage through the kidney. The rate at which PAH enters the kidney is equal to the rate that it leaves. Then it will be RPF equals to UPAHV divided by PAH minus PAH. Note that this expression is the direct Fick formula for measuring plasma flow. The blood flow is equal to the rate of consumption, excretion, which has been divided by the arteriovenous concentration differences. So there is a common to make the approximation that the concentration of PAH in the renal venous blood be 0. Substituting 0 to venous or PAH allow us to compute a quantity called effective renal plasma flow, or we can say ERPF. So ERPF means UPAHV divided by PAH. So here the ERPF is equal to the clearance of PAH, and that it underestimates the true renal plasma flow by approximately 10%. The normal value of ERPF in a 70 kg human body is about 625 ml per minute. Since PAH clearance underestimates renal plasma flow by about 10%, the true renal RPF, renal plasma flow, will be about 700 ml per minute. The renal flow, blood flow RBF will be RBF equals to RPF divided by 1. Okay, so that if the hematocrit is 45% and RPF is 700 ml, then the RPF will be 1273 ml per minute. This is about 20 to 25% of cardiac output. The filtration fraction is defined as the ratio of GFR divided by RPF. If suppose GFR is 125 ml per minute and RPF is about 700 ml per minute, then the filtration fraction will be between 0.179. The filtration fraction is typically between 0.15 to 0.20. So this was all about the presentation. I hope you have gained a lot of clinical information through this presentation. Please like, share, subscribe our YouTube channel named as British Biomedicine Institute. Good luck, goodbye.